Hey everyone, it's Anthony Allen Ramos. Happy Pride. Well, guess what? The Book of Queer is a new 5-episode series starting June 2nd on Discovery Plus. It's basically a great lesson in queer history. Each episode tells a story of multiple historic, groundbreaking queer individuals throughout history in the most entertaining and comedic way. And today I'm so excited to be chatting with the self-proclaimed resident homo historian and executive producer, Eric Cervini. How are you?
I'm wonderful. Thanks so much for having me.
Happy Pride to you.
Happy Pride.
I always say, honestly, this is so much fun, but I always say Pride is a time to learn the queer history, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think this is so great. So it's 5 episodes. It's kind of these really comedic reenactments. I mean, we're talking about Abraham Lincoln, so many others, but kind of set it up for us because I think it's really based on kind of what you were doing on YouTube.
Exactly. Yeah, I got my PhD in 2019, right before COVID. And one of the things I realized while I was in grad school was, first of all, just how little I knew about queer history. And also that all the things I thought I knew about queer history were wrong, because
Yeah.
growing up in Texas, I certainly wasn't taught it in school. So my only access to it was, Philadelphia, the film Milk, other, more mainstream things that came out of Hollywood. And what happens very often, as you know, at GLAAD, in a lot of these films, especially back in the old days, it was all these, gay cowboys dying, right? Or gay scientists dying, lawyers dying. And it was just so depressing. And what I found in my research in queer history is, yes, sometimes the context of queer history is very dark, whether it's, the Inquisition, the Lavender Scare, the AIDS crisis. But what I found most striking of all was the fact that we were still able to find joy. We were still able to find humor. We were able to develop new forms of humor and entertainment, whether it's drag or camp, so many different ways that we were able to come together and choose a chosen family when we didn't necessarily have our own family to begin with. And so I think what I wanted to prove through those videos and then through this show was that despite so many of the difficulties, despite the continuing fight for equality, we have always been not just surviving, but thriving. And I think that's something we need to rejuvenate ourselves with comedy and love and humor and joy. And that's what the show tries to do.
And I love that. And I think at GLAAD, we are obviously so aware and responding to the really dark, heavy stuff that's happening for our community. But also during Pride, we said we have to, like you said, queer joy. It's so important. And I think this series really is going to bring a lot of people joy. But I think it's really cool. So the format, you basically have a queer celebrity narrator. We're talking like Alex Newell, Dominique Jackson, so many others. And then there's these reenactments that are really funny, but like the disclaimer says, they're very funny, but they're factually correct, which is important. And then there's like music involved. Tell me how why, I guess, did you want to kind of do it in this format?
Well, I think first and foremost, we want people to be entertained. We want people to laugh. And then we want to surprise them with the fact that they've learned something along the way. And, when you look at a lot of the documentaries or history books, very often they're serious. And I think we had to, as a community, tell these very serious stories first so that we could grapple with a lot of that trauma. But now I think because a lot of the basic histories have been told, now we can play with it. And now we can find some more of the stories, not just of joy and humor, but also of resistance and finding joy through resistance. And I think that's equally important. I think you have to have both sides, the serious history books and campy entertainment and drag queens, frolicking around telling these stories. And so we wanted to prove that, queer history is it's just as diverse as queer existence is today. There's darkness, but there's also light. There's sadness, but also humor. And we try to put that humor and joy first, and of course acknowledge the very difficult context that a lot of these stories are taking place in. But we want people to laugh and enjoy themselves. And I think that's so important right now, as you alluded to, with 300 bills targeting LGBTQ plus folks, especially trans children right now. We have to give ourselves a moment, not just to recharge, but also to learn from the past while laughing and having a good time too, and enjoying some incredible music that I'm so excited for folks to see and hear.
Yeah, there's like new songs in every episode. I mean, I think Betty Who is a part of it. I mean, all of the icons. I love this. I think about this series, 5 episodes that'll be dropping throughout the month. And Discovery Plus has such a big audience. And I think there's so many different types of people that watch this type of programming that they have. So I think there's a real opportunity for people that maybe have no idea about what being part of the community is, or didn't know, so much about the history. What are you hoping that, people that maybe just, find it and click it and watch it, what are you hoping they take away from it?
I think if there's anything that the last couple of years have taught us with this political attack that's being waged upon us, it's that we need more folks learning about our past, about the contributions of queer folks, but we also need to teach ourselves, right? We had 12 queer writers, comedians write this. We had 18 queer historians. I learned something new. I got my PhD in queer history. I learned something new from this show every single day that I was working on it, from these other scholars in the field, and also from the comedians, also from our cast, who brought in incredible improv skills and had me on the floor dying laughing with things that were never written down. And so I think it's this fusion of serious history with music, with comedy, is going to create something that I don't believe has ever been done before. And, I think whether you're straight, cisgender, queer, or trans, everyone has something to learn from it, because I think if there's anything that history teaches us, especially queer history, is it's infinite. And we have so much work to do to keep mining a lot of these stories. And I hope it inspires folks, whether you're queer or straight, to keep doing the digging, keep doing the research, read some more books, or write one of your own.
Now, you are also not just EP, as I mentioned, self-proclaimed homo historian. You're featured within this, which is so fun. Do you have a favorite queer historian or favorite story that you cover? I mean, I know it's like picking children, but do you have a favorite kind of one in there?
Oh my gosh, there are so many. Like I said, 18 queer historians, and then we had just as many peer reviewers contribute to make sure we were telling, because we want to make sure we're telling the story right. I'm sure you saw when you watched it, we have citations on the screen so that if you want to learn more about any given topic, you can go pick it up at your independent bookshop or library. But gosh, I have to say, I'm biased. I'm a queer historian. I study the 60s. Stonewall is just, it's been told a few times. The telling of the story changes every time, as most mythologies do, right? Something that's sacred to our identities and to the stories we tell ourselves. It is always going to be in flux, but bringing in so many different voices, whether it was trans activists, trans scholars, queer scholars, to create a mosaic of the stories that we are telling ourselves, and also that are confirmed about Stonewall, and to recreate it in a really stylistic, beautiful way. I have to shout out to the director, Colin Hargrave, who's just incredible in how he captured this moment. And that's our final musical number is Stonewall. And we hope that it, so much of queer art is political. In fact, queer art by definition is political. And I really hope that people see this as not just a form of art and entertainment, but also of political mobilization, because I hope people watch it and come away saying, let's go back and fight.
No, I love that. And I'm thinking about all of this. So to get a degree in queer history, and you mentioned, I think you said growing up in Texas, right? Mm-hmm. How did you eventually, because I don't think anyone, maybe you did, maybe you said that I'm going to college to get that degree, but how did you eventually end up with that? Because I think it's a remarkable way to, get your schooling.
Yeah, amen. Thank you. Tell that to my mother. She was very excited about me going to college and becoming a lawyer, getting that stable salary. And you know what? I stumbled upon a name that eventually became my first. It was an essay in an undergrad paper, at an undergrad seminar, and then it became my senior thesis, then master's, then PhD, then book. And it was the story of Frank Kameny and a pre-Stonewall gay rights organization in Washington called the Mathews Society. So they were protesting in front of the White House, 5 years before Stonewall, and borrowing from the Black Freedom Movement. They attended the March on Washington and started saying, hey, maybe we should be doing the same thing. So they almost literally Xeroxed some of the strategies. And I said, why do people not know this name? Why do people not know the name of the Mathews Society or Frank Kameny or Ernestine Eppinger or Barbara Giddings? And I just couldn't put it down. Every step along the way, I said, you know what, whatever it takes, I need to share this with the world. I need to figure out the full story. And so 8 years later, it finally happened. And now that's what I'm really hoping more people do, because it's a relatively new field of queer history. And I think there's so many more figures out there who deserve their own books, whether it's Marsha P. Johnson deserves her own book. Sylvia Rivera deserves her own book. Thankfully, there are authors working on those right now, so I'm really excited. But I hope we get more and more of those, because like I said, this history is infinite.
Well, look, you can tell your mom, look, now I have things on TV now, right?
I know, I think she's doing just fine. She's she's very proud and is my number one advocate and ally, and I love her to death.
Well, I love that. And look, I always say Pride is about, like I said, opening up the queer history books, learning. It's about celebrating. It's also about getting fired up and realizing we have a lot of work left to do. And I think that this series really has the potential to, do all of that for people. So congrats again. And just a reminder, everyone, the Book of Queer will be available to start streaming June 2nd on Discovery Plus.